Hello, BookTube. It's a bright, sunny, very humid day, and first thing this morning, I went back to the Brattle Bookshop. It's a used bookstore in downtown Boston. I was there in downtown Boston anyway, and I needed to pick me up, and the Brattle always provides that. It's a great place, mainly because the turnover is so manic, so high, that you literally can find something new every day. And on top of that, there are so many books, both in the shop and in the huge sale lot next door, that you don't see everything. Even if you're paying real close attention, going book by book, you still miss things. You get your eyes blur over, your concentration fades, and the next time you're there, your concentration falls on a different place, and you spot things that were there the last time that just ran right by you when you were there. So it's possible to get a huge amount of books every time you visit, and thanks to the cheap prices out in the sale lot, $1, $3, and $5 books only. That's all that's out there. Nothing more expensive than $5. Thanks to that, it's possible to do all of that without breaking the bank. Like I mentioned the last time I went to the Brattle, the thing that does it for me is how much I can carry, not how much I can afford. The Brattle has never outspent me, but so often I will reach my carrying capacity, and that'll be that. And that happened today. That happened this morning. And I have a pile of books to show you, and this pile of books is half of what I brought back. All the rest of what I brought back are gifts earmarked for some of you, for people who might be watching this video, so I can't show them to you. But that still leaves a lot to talk about. That shows the variety of what you can find at the Brattle sale lot. Just incredible. Like this first one, which is a UK trade paperback. Cannot believe this. I did not know that this trade paperback even existed, and I love the book, so I grabbed it. I have another copy of the book, but I'll gladly take this. And this is a trade paperback of The Assassin's Cloak, a big, fat anthology of diaries that I just love. I look at the gold finishes on this, just fantastic. I love this. It takes you through the calendar instead of through time. So it takes you through the days of the calendar, and for each of those days provides you with diary entries, famous and not famous, from 6 or 7 people for that day in different eras as you just progress through the seasons. And it is an amazing reading experience. I have read it once, picking and choosing, bouncing all around, and once straight through from start to finish. And the reading straight through from start to finish was amazing as an experience, because it really showed me that the weather and the sky are the only things that we have in common from era to era. The only. If all of these are Western-centric, there are no, I mean, the Eastern world, Japan especially, has diary traditions going back thousands of years before the Western tradition starts. But this doesn't have any of that. This is a Western collection. And in these essays, if you read them in book form, just from front to back, the winters are always cold, summers are always hot, the moon is always up in the sky on a summer evening. Those things amazingly bind together the diary entries of people who not only didn't know each other, but had no idea that anyone would ever be reading their diary entries. Just fantastic reading experience. Cannot recommend it strongly enough, especially, I mean, not necessarily this, but especially if you yourself keep a diary. I do. I think everybody should. And this is an amazing thing to read if you do. Let's give you an idea of what I'm talking about. Let's pick today. All right, this is July 15th. Let's see what's going on for July 15th. So let's see here. William Allingham has an entry from 1866. Breakfasted at 9:30. A.T. That's Alfred Tennyson. Out at 12, Swan Green Forest Path, Halliday's Hall, we swim through tall bracken. T pauses midway, turns to me and says solemnly, I believe this place is quite full of vipers. Who else have we got here? Chips Cannon, the famous diarist Chips Cannon, writing in 1940, when the whole world was dark with war. What does he have to say? What can the future hold for us personally now? What can one look for? Only to save from the wreckage one's hopes, one's possessions, and some part of one's fortune. What a mess. I have little heart to go on. All I want is an oval library with doors leading into a rose garden by the sea. Well, yes. So do I. Yes, an oval library with doors leading into a rose garden by the sea. That sounds lovely. Where do I sign up? That's from 1940. Okay, from 1935. Someone named Leanne Depougy, Pougy. Maybe I should know who that is, but I'm not sure that I do. From 1935, we have a one-sentence diary entry from Leanne. Anniversary of the day on which I got married, and on which, with one thrust, which quite deprived me of breath, I lost my virginity. And it just, I was going to say it just goes on like that, but it's not all about, I quite took away my breath. Oh my. Well, anyway, I never opened this thing without encountering joy, just pure joy. It's one of my favorite anthologies of any kind. And I didn't know that this trade existed. So I'll reinforce this a bit so that it doesn't fall apart quite so quickly on me. And then I will have a nice, what is it that Jason Harrigan refers to as reading copies? I'll have a nice reading copy of Assassin's Cloak, something that I can keep on the nightstand and just read, through the course of a year. That'd be great. Then we have some history. In fact, quite a bit of this is history and biography. We have a volume that I remembered being praised. I got it myself from the publisher and praised it and reviewed its sequel. And then years passed, and then David Murphy had a BookTube channel. Any of you old enough to remember when David Murphy had a BookTube channel among us? I never understand why people stop making BookTube videos. This is just so much fun. And in no time at all, it's not going to be possible anyway. Well, I don't know why people stop. I don't know why they do it. But anyway, he read these books by James Holland and really liked them. James Holland's series about Nazi Germany, the sort of life and times of Nazi Germany. He read them and really liked them, and it reminded me that I'd liked them too and got rid of them. So I found the first one, The Rise of Germany. This is 1939 to 1941, which is the exact time period of, almost the exact time period of some books by, what was his name, William McDonough? Those really illustrated new histories of the rise and fall of Nazi Germany that I'm getting. I've got 2 volumes so far. This is along the same lines. And I don't know if I'm blurbed on the paperback of this, but I read it. If I remember, I will leave a link to my review down below. And I don't have it. I mean, when I saw it at the Brattle, I realized that I don't have any of Holland's books, so I grabbed it. This next one also, oh my. The other day, I was thinking about World War I, as I very, very often do. I was thinking about World War I. I was thinking about Verdun and the Somme and Passchendaele and the people involved and the drama involved and the details that a lot of people don't know, even though the details are like something out of science fiction. And I looked at my history bookcase. I have a huge, just wall-length, floor-to-ceiling history bookcase. And I looked at that for World War I books. I was thinking, I'll read a bit here and there. And I was shocked at how little I actually have. And one of the books, the one that I was looking for most, I didn't have. And just put in the back of my mind, I must have sent it to one of you. I must have. One of you must have written to me years ago and said, what do you recommend for World War II books? And I must have said, I'll make you up a box and send it off. But one way or another, I didn't have it, and it is a modern classic on the subject, so when I saw it at the Brattle, I grabbed it. It's this. It's by William Philpott. It's 3 Armies on the Somme. And it's really, really good. This is like, they got the deckled edges, and this is okay, it was bought by somebody in 2011, and it's a perfect condition, almost perfect condition hardcover, so I grabbed it to reconstitute the World War I section of my library. I have Marshall's book and a couple of others, but I don't have a lot of the ones that I want, which is unacceptable. Unacceptable. And I will make sure, I also have Hugh Strachan's book, 2 Arms, his gigantic book about the start of the war, his sort of, his version of The Guns of August by Barbara Tuchman. But I wanted this too. So I was glad to find it. I'll probably end up rereading a chunk of it. Then we have a biography. What would a trip to the Brattle be without a biography? I got a few of them today. And this one is well known to me. This is well known to me. It's a well-known subject, a well-known author. It's a well-known book in all of its stages of gestation. And this is Brenda Wineapple's biography of Nathaniel Hawthorne. There he is in grim, late quarter-life crisis. Not the beauty of his youth, but not the pharisaical sagacity of his older years. And there is a marble fawn on the spine, which I rather like as a detail. And this has one of those plastic library covers on it, which is great. Brenda Wineapple is fantastic. She's never written a bad book. Her credit in the Bank of Steve could not be any higher. I think that Hawthorne is a fascinating character. I've had this book before. At one point, I had 6 biographies of Nathaniel Hawthorne, and then in some point, in a fit of madness, I looked at them and thought, well, surely you only need one. And so I guess I got rid of a lot of them, but I shouldn't have. This is a wonderful reading experience, as everything is by this author. So I grabbed it. Well, what's the matter, baby? Are you panting? If you're panting, maybe you shouldn't be in that window. Oh, goodness. It's a little bit warm and humid today. It's not prohibitively bad, but Frida is extremely vulnerable to the heat. Try telling her that, but she is. She's extremely vulnerable to the heat. Anyway, let's just push on, and then I'll cool her off a bit. This next one is an American Revolution book. This is George Washington and the American Revolution by Burke Davis. Not to be confused with Burke Boyce, who wrote The Man from Mount Vernon, a great novel about George Washington, a novel about George Washington that really captures him better than almost any biography that I've ever read has done. Burke Davis, I know his work. Don't think I've ever read this. I'm perfectly happy to, hoping that it's not just hero worship of Washington. But I don't remember that from the books of his that I've read. So I'll definitely give it a try. I'm always up for it. And again, because these were all so cheap, the real concern was whether or not I could lug them back here, not whether or not I'm out of pocket money. You know, if I will read through the stuff that's new to me. I will read right through, and the stuff that's not new to me, like for instance the 3 Armies on the Somme, I know that I want that. I know that I can just put it on the shelf. But if it turns out that a couple of these things I end up not wanting, I can get rid of them as easily as I got them at the Brattle or elsewhere. I'm not out a lot of money, so there's not it's not like the feeling of buying a brand new book at a retail bookstore for $25, $30, something like that, where you feel terrible if you don't get to it. You feel terrible if you don't like it. You feel terrible if you want to get rid of it because it was a chunk of money. You don't ever have that feeling at the Brattle. So this next one is a biography of Boccaccio, who is one of my favorite Italian writers. And this is by, can you make that out? J.A. Simons. This is a very old thing. When was this made? Oh, the paper is stiff like cloth. Fantastic. When did this come out? 1905? B? No? 1915? Well, it doesn't really have a date on it, but looks like some of the pages aren't cut here. This author. Let me see if I can get you the page. Yeah, there we go. This author was upon a time famous as a classicist and famous for other things as well. He was a strong proponent, for instance, of what we would now call homosexuality, and spoke and wrote and taught that it was not wrong, which, in his day and time was not anything that you could safely do. And did a whole bunch of great translating, great writing, great researching about the Italian Renaissance. And his book about Boccaccio, I don't think I've ever read. And this is a perfect example of the kind of thing that you can just find at the Brattle. And not up in the antique floor either, but out on the sale lot for $1. So, naturally, for $1, I grabbed it. I'm interested in what this author has to say anyway. I don't know how much he's going to be able to tell me about Boccaccio, but I don't have another Boccaccio biography. So I'm happy to have this one. Then this next one, I saw it and immediately thought of Mark Richardson. of Richardson Reads, the BookTube channel Richardson Reads up in Vermont, because this is Hermann Hesse, and he really likes Hermann Hesse. This is my belief. Essays on life and art. And I saw this thing and thought, I don't remember ever... Mark likes Hermann Hesse a lot more than I do, for instance. And I saw this thing and thought, I don't remember seeing this, up in the old house in Vermont among his Hermann Hesse books. So I'll grab it and send it to him. I'll put it in my next Vermont box. And then I looked through it. Then I looked through what it was. This is translated by Denver Lindley. And this is huge amounts of essays on book reviewing, on books, on authors, on Boccaccio, for instance, on Hans Christian Andersen, on Walt Whitman, on D.H. Lawrence, Thomas Wolfe, J.D. Salinger, Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud. And after I realized what this was, after I realized that this was exactly the kind of author's book that I have a whole bookcase for, where an author collects all of his book reviews and book prefaces and book essays. As soon as I realized that, my first thought was, Mark who? So he will have to wait. I'm going to keep this myself. I'm going to reinforce it and probably read through the book-related stuff today. No reason why. I mean, I'm not as big a fan of Hermann Hesse's fiction as Mark is. But there's no reason why his book of book stuff shouldn't be in my collection and not in Mark's collection. I'll probably relent. But in the meantime, I also got a murder mystery, and somebody went to the bother of putting it in one of these plastic library containers. This is great. Haven't read this. I've read a couple of mysteries by this author, but I haven't read this one. This is Deadline for a Critic by William Kenzel, who, as you can see on the cover there, wrote The Rosary Murders, and that just took off. His detective, his sleuth, is a Catholic priest, as Kenzel himself was for 10, 15 years. And his Catholic priest, the Rosary Murders was made into a movie. I want to say, oh God, did it star Donald Sutherland? I don't remember. I don't remember any details about the movie. I remember the book, The Rosary Murders, and that was one of the ones by this author that I read. But I didn't read this one. And this is a nice thing. This came out in the 80s? 1987. Yes, when all the world made sense. And I remember opening this. I remember paging through the beginning of it back in 1987 when it was a new book. And the beginning of it is a critic, sort of an all-purpose ombudsman critic who will go to do anything. He'll be a restaurant critic, a theater critic, an art critic, a book critic. And he's vicious, savage, and he ends up dead. And naturally, there's a long list of suspects. Anybody whose career he ruined with his reviews is technically a suspect. But the book opens with a scene of him at a restaurant with his close male friend. And he's eating an enormous amount of rich, fatty food and having glass after glass of cognac. And the friend is worrying, saying, you shouldn't be eating like this. You had a heart attack and your doctor says you won't survive a second one. And the critic in the scene at the opening of the book, when AIDS comes up, the specter of AIDS is all over the beginning of this book. A new disease, newly diagnosed, where the characters don't know quite whether or not they can catch it and how from other people. But in that scene, if I remember correctly, the critic of the title, whose name I think is Grendel, but in one way or another, in that scene, the critic is telling his longtime companion, the doctors can't tell me when another heart attack is going to come. They are only sure that I'm not going to survive it. I say I should live life to the fullest while I'm alive, rather than worry and postpone the inevitable day. And I think about that scene sometimes because it's so horrifying, because the author died of a heart attack. And it was one that his doctors saw coming. In fact, I think he was getting ready to go to the doctor when he keeled over. Just died immediately of a heart attack. And I often wonder, at times like that, and there are instances like that in all kinds of novels, I often wonder if when Kenzel was writing that scene, did he feel a little chill run up his spine? Did he feel like someone was walking on his grave? I always wonder on that thing. I know it's silly, but I always wonder, how do we know? If you're a prolific writer, almost certainly, if you're a prolific writer of mysteries or crime novels, almost certainly you're going to write something that presages how you yourself will die. And I always wonder about that. I'm sure that I will enjoy the book. A book where a critic meets his end. always a bit of Schadenfreude there. And then we have the last book in this Brattle trip. And the last book is the only example for today of something that has come up recently. I mentioned the other day that often you can tell when books at the Brattle in the sale lot have come from the same individual person. And not just because of book plates or because they signed it or something, but also because of the distinctive way they highlight it, distinctive way they annotate it, something like that. Last year we had the Tabby Cat, someone who had gone through with all of those multicolored adhesive tabs, sometimes hundreds in one book. But the books were really good. The person had really good taste in books. They had apparently no memory whatsoever, but they had good taste in books. And so I was happy to have those books, and I just patiently removed the tabs. I owe a lot to previous curators of books. I take them seriously. I poke fun at them, but I love them. They are my brethren. I'm sure that we would have talked if we'd met when they were alive. But my affection only goes so far. I'm not going to leave those hideous tabs in the book. And recently at the Brattle, I've noticed a bunch of books, also obviously from the same previous owner, who had taken excerpts and reviews from every journal that affected the book, carefully noted the date of the piece, because when you cut them out of a newspaper or a magazine, and then you trim them to fit inside a book, often the thing you're trimming is the date, which is at the very bottom or the very top. So you have to date it yourself, or you have to remember to do that, or you're not going to know when it happened. And I got book after book after book that had excerpts in it like that from a stranger who I assume is dead that I naturally dubbed the Yankee Clipper. And today I only found one book that had belonged to the Yankee Clipper. And the only reason I found it is because I realized once I was there at the Brattle this morning, I was kind of thinking, wouldn't it be fun to find more books from the Yankee Clipper, especially since he has great taste. These are books that I actually want. And then I thought, in addition to looking, you're scanning the sale lot books, you're looking for stuff that you don't already have. Or rather, your eyes are blocking out the stuff you do already have because it's that many fewer books to look at, and there are so many books to look at. And I cautioned myself this morning and remembered, no, what you need to do is look at the books you do already have in case he filled them with clippings. In which case, for $1, for $3, get them and swap them out with the ones that you have, or at least swap out the clippings. I thought about that in the last minute this morning, and that is how I got this book, which I've had many times. I don't have it at the moment. I didn't have it. I might have got it anyway, even if it didn't previously belong to the Yankee Clipper, but it did. This is Sarah Bradford's biography of Queen Elizabeth II, with this very distinctive cover, where the dust jacket covers the naked picture in a way that very neatly signifies that you can almost get close to this figure in history, but not quite. Almost, but not quite. And as you can see, the Yankee Clipper filled this with clippings, just filled it with stuff. A ton at the front and a ton scattered throughout the book. Now, I had this once upon a time, and I got rid of it. I got rid of a few Queen Elizabeth II biographies, and all for the same reason that you might think twice about a book like this, because Sarah Bradford wrote this biography of Queen Elizabeth almost exactly 100 years ago today, and when she wrote it, Queen Elizabeth was in the 273rd year of her reign. So it's incomplete, to say the least. England had not gone through the loss of the colonies. England had not gone through the Boer Wars, the First and Second World Wars, austerity, Brexit. All those things lie ahead for young Elizabeth in this book. There's, if I remember correctly, a neat scene about her courtship with the youngest son of Edward the Confessor. And there's of course the great bit where she gets the bubonic plague and laughs it off with her famous quip, one cannot ladle all day in bed. But even so, uh, biographies like this date because Queen Elizabeth II just kept on reigning. And since, I believe in 2015, the last of her human organic parts was replaced, she's just going to keep on reigning. So, Sarah Bradford is not like that. She's not a member of the House of Windsor. So she might be in her 70s now. But when she's in her 170s, she'll be dead, and Queen Elizabeth II will still be queen. But still, she's a spirited, wonderful biographer. So I would want this anyway. I've had this a few times. In fact, people have said, "What's a good one-volume biography of Queen Elizabeth II?" If I want to read up on the subject, and the choices is always either Robert Lacey, Majesty, or this book, with the caveat given in both cases, which is that they're drastically incomplete. Queen Elizabeth has been on the throne for right now, 398 years. So any book like this is going to be incomplete. But if you want something that gives you a spirited look without needing you to be an expert on the monarchy, Ben Pinlot's book, Majesty, or The Queen, is probably the best book that I've ever read on Queen Elizabeth II. But it does sort of require you to have a degree of insider knowledge, of insider baseball, familiarity with the royals and history like that. Pinlot is really great at narrating it all, but only because he's dumping overboard a lot of the necessity to bring you up to speed. Whereas Sarah Bradford is very much a popular biographer. She does not want you to feel like you're not up to speed. So this is a wonderful job of describing Elizabeth's upbringing, her young girlhood, all that sort of stuff. So I do actually recommend it. And as soon as I saw it, I thought, well, I want it anyway, even if it doesn't have all these gems from the Yankee Clipper. But it does. There's a whole scrapbook full of stuff in it. So happy to have it. So there you go. That was another trip to the Brattle. A part of it, anyway. There's a whole stack right over there, as tall as this one. As many books as this one. That didn't make it. I'm not showing them on camera because they're going out in the mail. They're on my workbench to go out in the mail. But even so, it was twice as many books to bring back here, which is the only really mournful note of the day. I wore my mask on public transit here in Boston, as I suspect we're all going to have to do for a long time. I shopped at the Brattle, and I went to my appointments, and I had good news and bad news, and then more bad news, and I smooched with a dog, and I fit all of my books in a shoulder bag and a tote bag, and I was almost all the way back here. I was only a half a mile away from the house when my shoulder bag died. It ripped in half. Fortunately, I was close to the house. And fortunately, the bag part of the bag, it wasn't that the bottom of the bag went out. It was that the top part of the bag, connecting it to the shoulder and to the rowel that holds the bag in place, that part tore off. So I still had all the books neatly in a sack of leather. It's just the rest of it that was useless. So I was able to sort of hold that bag under my arm while carrying the tote bag in the other arm and just barely make it across the finish line. And then, sing taps. I had to play taps and give that bag a burial because it died getting back here. That's how many books I get at the Brattle. So I'll have to get another bag. But anyway, we have Queen Elizabeth II by Sarah Bradford. A strong recommend. We have Deadline for a Critic, in which a Catholic priest solves the murder of a hated critic. We have My Belief by Hermann Hesse. Pretty sure that wasn't its German title. It's just a big collection of his occasional writing. Great. We have A.J. Simmons' book on Boccaccio. Slim little thing that I've never seen it before at a used bookstore. I've never seen it reprinted. Bound to be good. We have George Washington and the American Revolution by Burke Davis. We have Brenda Wineapple's biography of Nathaniel Hawthorne with a plastic covering over it. Perfect. Go right on the biography shelf. We have Three Armies on the Somme, a modern classic about the Somme. Fantastic. Glad to have it again. We have The Rise of Germany by James Holland. Volume 1 in a trilogy. If the other books show up at the Brattle, I will grab them. I don't have any of them. And finally, The Assassin's Cloak. A big, fat, very enjoyable anthology of diaries over the ages, all in the course of 1 year. So there you go. Quite the Brattle trip. A lot of fun. So I'm going to inventory these and mark them up and probably do a lot of reading in them too before I move on to the reading that I have to do today. But anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I will see you soon. Thank you, BookTube.